Okay, here's my diagram of the two parts of the brain. So to start, the cerebral cortex, which is here, it's in both parts of the brain. It's known as the outer layer of the brain, and it helps with thinking, planning, and more. Then starting on the left side of the brain, there's the brainstem, which you can see here. It goes all the way up. It acts as the core for the brain, and it's the crossover point between the left and right hemispheres. It's responsible for automatic survival actions. Next is the medulla, which you can see here. It controls heartbeat and breathing. And then you can see the cerebellum. That is in charge of voluntary movement. Next is the basal ganglia, which also controls voluntary movement because it works with the cerebellum and the cerebral cortex for that. So that is kind of like in here. And then you can see the hippocampus, which assists with learning and storing long-term memories. Next would be the pons. This helps with sleeping, dreaming, breathing, and respiration rate. Then the reticular formation also helps with sleeping through the sleep and wake cycle. Next is the amygdala. It influences fear, aggression, and the flight or fight response on the hippocampus. So they kind of work together. And then is the corpus callosum here. It carries messages between the two brain hemispheres. So then the next couple aren't really seen on the diagram, but they still play a really important part in the brain. So I wrote them here. The thalamus organizes sensory information and relays it to the cortex. The hypothalamus controls motivated actions, automatic functions, emotional states, and assists the pituitary gland. And then going off of that, but the pituitary gland is known as the master gland, and it regulates the other glands. So that's pretty much this left side. So then going over to the right side, I labeled the lobes. So the frontal lobe, which is here, influences personality, intelligence, and voluntary muscle control. And then the motor cortex is within the frontal lobe, and it specifically helps with precise voluntary movements, like moving your fingers and things like that. And then Broca's area is what helps with speech production. The temporal lobe here is helping with hearing, language processing, and memory. And then the occipital lobe processes and responds to visuals like colors, shapes, and motion. And then Wernicke's area helps decode spoken languages. The parietal lobe understands sensory information, spatial relations, and works with attention. And then the somatosensory cortex is within the parietal lobe, and it focuses on mostly processing sensory information, and it does that by interpreting touch with temperature, pain, and pressure. So yeah.